This is Eric Simons coming to you from the 16 House. Welcome to this month's edition of Virginia Beach Frontline Firefighter.
Coming up on this edition of Virginia Beach Frontline Firefighter. Master Firefighter Mark Hunley brings us another Hazmat Minute. Dr. Charles Parker and Master Firefighter Bill Murray are in the studio to discuss the importance of critical incident stress debriefings. Firefighter Eric Simons demos a unique front-end hose deployment method the crews have implemented at Company 16 on all shifts. Master Firefighter Ned Lowry brings us a unique segment on storm water management pump stations. We see them everywhere throughout the city, but let's review what we should all know about them as first responders. Master Firefighter Chris Zach breaks a 400-foot line down to a 200-foot line on Engine 16. I'm Master Firefighter Tom Parks. Here's the host of Virginia Beach Frontline Firefighter, Master Firefighter Chris Stockow.
Thanks, Tom. We begin our first segment on today's program with Master Firefighter Mark Hunley in our latest Hazmat Minute.
Mark Hunley here again with another Hazmat Minute. With the smaller containers that may be leaking that can be found inside or outside of business, we can use defensive tactics learned in hazmat operations to control them. The first method is the V-dike. As you can see from the video, this is a defensive method of controlling a leaking container. By using an adsorbent, something that the material will stick to, or an absorbent, something the material will absorb into, we can control it from going any further away from the source. This should be large enough to keep the spill from migrating away from its source. The next method is using the circle dike. By using the control material, we can construct a circle dike by extending it from the ends of the V. This circle should be made large enough to contain the contents of the container to give us time for other methods to be used, like pumping the container out. Again, we are trying to control the contents of the container from migrating away from the source. Using adsorbents or adsorbents. Once the contents of the container have been controlled by using the V or the circle dike, we can use the same adsorbents or absorbents to assist in keeping the leak from migrating, controlling any vapor production, or for cleanup. Thanks for watching, and as always, please feel free to contact me with any questions at Company 3.
Next up, a little out of the ordinary with yours truly. Is it possible to use embarrassment to motivate oneself into becoming more physically fit? That question and a challenge to all of you. Now here's a little more of me than I care for you to see. Many of you know I have been challenged by the Frontline staff to become more physically fit. So, with that, I have agreed to put myself out there, so to speak, and see just how physically fit I can become over the next 16 weeks. I will have baselines from blood work to push-ups and other measurable tests, including the physical agility test that our new recruits have recently gone through. It is our hope that many of you out in the field will see if you can match or beat my progress. We put out an email offering people the chance to compete alongside me. Many thought it was a great idea, but were a little camera shy. So I agreed to take their embarrassment and add it to mine. The time has come for me to trade in my book of excuses, Why Howie Should Wait One More Day to Start His Diet and Exercise Program, for a more healthier book, perhaps one dealing with motivation, of which I have lacked a little over the last couple of years. Through years of scientific research, I have discovered lack of physical fitness basically has come down to two things for me: too many excuses and too many calories. Our fitness coordinator, Herb West, has agreed to help train, monitor, and motivate me throughout the process. I'm confident with his help, success will be within my reach. All right, now that I've had a chance to catch my breath, first off, I'd like to thank Chief Crandall and the entire fire training staff for letting us use the facility here and set up this course. All right, Herb, now that you've seen me go through this course, what is your opinion of how I can improve and how much do I need to improve?
Well, Howie, I'll say I was surprised. You did better than I thought you were going to do. But you were approximately a minute off the maximum time that we would take for a candidate, so that's good. You probably have some weak areas that you could improve in. You were complaining about your legs, so that's the place we'd probably start, with working on your leg strength a little bit.
Ken, was the victim that I towed around, was that the same weight as the ones the other guys used?
No, we tricked you a little bit on that. That was about 40 pounds heavier.
Okay, and for the record, I did have was it a 50-pound vest?
50-pound vest on.
Okay, so anyways, this is the first day of my official challenge to get into shape in 16 weeks. Thanks to Herb for being here and supporting me, and he's going to help me throughout the whole process. So wish me luck. We're going to have some other candidates within the department, and we're going to see just how low they can go from a weight loss standpoint, and hopefully everyone together will get in much better physical condition. Thank you. Okay, well, there you have it. Next month we'll check and see how things are progressing, and at the halfway point I will have my midterms to see how good or bad I'm doing. I hope many of you will join me, especially some of the older folks. By the completion of this test I will have reached 48 years of age. And a note to our younger folks, yes, you too will be 48 one day. Wish me luck, I wish all of you luck, and let's get more fit together. Remember, motivation is a requirement for success, not failure. Next up, in the studio, it's Master Firefighter Bill Murray and Dr. Charles Parker with another conversation to discuss the importance of critical incident stress debriefings. They'll review how firefighters and other public servants can address the emotional toll these incidents can have on them.
Thanks, Chris. Welcome back to the Frontline Firefighter Studios. This morning we're going to continue our series on firefighter mental health. This morning we've got Dr. Parker back in the studios. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Bill.
This morning we're going to talk about a topic that's been in the fire service for quite a while: post-traumatic stress disorder and critical incident stress management. Dr. Parker, this morning we'd like to talk a little bit about those topics. And really, it's been in the fire service for a while. We've seen a spike in the news media from recent conflicts and wars. What can you tell us, maybe some trends that have changed in the mental health industry in regards to PTSD and the origins of PTSD?
Well, the evolution of the mental health industry is really starting to include the biology of mental health. For so long we thought it was all a mental problem. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you're a firefighter, police officer, somebody in any of those services where they're dealing with trauma on a regular basis, the issue is, if it looks like a mental problem, the first action for everybody, denial. Because it's a mental problem.
Right.
So that if you had a mental problem, then you're weak and we don't know if we can work with you, nothing personal. And so it's a natural thing and it's true for women as well as men, but it's certainly in a men's club, as it were. That's a big thing to not have denial going on. So the first thing is overcoming the denial. But the thing that's going to help everybody overcome the denial is the point that we're raising right here about the new information. Mm-hmm. New information really shows us that the tracks get laid down on an actual neurologic brain level. So it's like having a cut, but it's on a brain level. So what happens is, if a person has a cut, they're sure as heck going to go fix it. It takes away the whole idea that a person's weak in some way. If you have a cut, it doesn't make you weak. If you have one of these things, it doesn't make you weak, except if you don't treat it. If you don't treat it, then you're going to have a problem. So that's the outline for it.
Are there any predisposing factors that we can identify that makes responders more susceptible to PTSD?
Yes, good question. Well, the issue is, first of all, and this brings in the psychology of it, but if a person had a traumatic childhood, for example, mm-hmm. they get into a situation like that, they are carrying that track, using the same terminology again, they're carrying that track from their childhood. Then they get into a real situation here, which looks like it's absolutely not related to the childhood, but they can just become metaphorically unzipped right on that spot because all this stuff comes back that they've denied for all those years. So that's a predisposition. The other predisposition is sleep. We've talked about sleep before on these programs. Sleep is a big deal. Any other psychological issues that are ongoing. So if a person's depressed, has family issues, has some vulnerability. That doesn't take it just over into psychology. The psychology can actually influence the laying down of a traumatic track because the psychology is also brain related.
Great. Because of the unique area that we live in, and stepping away from emergency providers for a second, we live in a very military-based community. In your practice in the Hampton Roads area, are you starting to see more PTSD situations, patients presenting in your practice with PTSD? And if you are, what are some signs and symptoms? What are some things that our responders can look for when they go to their residences, maybe medications or signs and symptoms that we can recognize this might be a PTSD case?
Well, first of all, we do have a higher incidence in this town, I think, because we've been living in a military town and we see the people coming back, and we see everyone from SEALs to, we've seen Navy pilots who won't announce that they've been seeing us. We've seen a number of individuals who out there have been out on the lines, and when they come back have been hammered in some respect or another, and really there's a considerable amount of dissatisfaction with what's actually going on in treatment and treatment modalities, because what's going on with treatment, unfortunately, with a lot of treatment centers is they're really focused on the psychology and they haven't really caught on to this whole biology thing. Now, to answer your second part of the question, what do they look like? It's almost like, what do they not look like? So the issue is a person can be depressed, have sleep problems, they can have issues of alcoholism, drug abuse, substance abuse, they have impulsivity, and then what happens is they're going to get, the biggest thing that you're going to see in a tight organization like the fire department is they're going to get further away from their companions.
Some withdrawal.
Yeah, and the reason they're going to withdraw is because if we're friends and I'm tight with you and something's going to happen to you again, like happened to this other person that I still am running that track on, nothing personal, but I'd just rather stay away, and let me just go ahead and be a Lone Ranger, because Lone Ranger is really cool in a certain respect, and then I can remain in denial, and I can just do the Lone Ranger thing and cope with it in that way.
Great. A lot of good points, a lot of good things to think about. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Bill.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chris, back to you.
You may have noticed several public utility or public works buildings throughout Virginia Beach. The exterior of these buildings can be misleading as to the challenges we could face if there were a rescue or incident involving these structures. Our next segment is brought to you by Master Firefighter Ned Lowry, who has outlined the use, design, and hazards of these buildings.
Behind me is one of 400 pump stations located throughout the city. Many have seen these in your travels, few have been inside. Today, we'd like to take you inside and prepare you and your crew for dangers you might encounter while called to one of these buildings for an emergency. While driving through the city, you may have noticed several small, unmarked public utilities and public works pumping stations. There are 3 types of pumping stations throughout the city: sanitary sewage, public water, and stormwater management. The outside appearance can be somewhat plain, but many of these structures have massive generators, piping, and enormous reservoirs used to handle these needs. Public utilities maintain 7 public water pump stations in strategic locations around the city, which work in tandem with the elevated water towers. This system provides water for public consumption, fire protection requirements, and sanitary sewage services. The system is constantly monitored for proper levels and operational readiness. Another vital responsibility of public utilities is maintaining the sanitary sewer pumping system. There are over 400 of these buildings throughout the city.
If you start out from your house, for example, you flush your toilet. It goes down a gravity line in front of your house, which is your sewer lateral, which is in your yard, which ties into the city gravity system. The gravity system takes it to the pump station. Once it gets to the pump station, we convey it through the pumps, back out into the street, into a force main, and send it to HRSD, which is what they call interceptor force mains. They intercept what we send to them, and it takes it to the Atlantic treatment plant or the Chesley's treatment plant down on Shore Drive.
In the event of an emergency, it is important to be familiar with the design of these buildings.
They're very deceiving, because if you see outside, you see a little teeny brick building that looks like the size of a shed sitting in your backyard. When they first walk through the door, 90% of them, they're going to see a motor room, which will consist of either 2 motors or 3, the control panels, vent fans, and then you'll have a stairway which goes down to the bottom where the pumps are. And some of those could be anywhere from 18 to 30 feet deep. The biggest danger we have is hydrogen sulfide gas, and that's what we monitor for. We monitor H2S, which is hydrogen sulfide gas, explosive gases, but we do not chemically feed anything to our sewer pump stations. We have some chemicals that we feed into manholes upstream for odor treatment, and it's called bioxide. That's fed into a manhole, goes gravity, comes to the station, so that really shouldn't have any effect on us. The biggest thing you have to worry about is the water. The amount of water if something was to break if you were downstairs, that could create a problem. Most of them are under pressure, and you figure if you have a 16-inch force main coming into the building and the pipe breaks and you're down there, you don't have long to get out.
It is important to note the detectors on our engines and ladders cannot detect hydrogen sulfide. Only the detectors on Squad 3 and Squad 10 have the ability to detect this chemical. Public Works handles stormwater management for the city. There are 35 stormwater projects underway by the city. Here at 16th Street and Ocean, there is an underground facility marked by 2 large ventilation pipes. As you navigate down into the main access room, you'll find a massive generator and control room designed to regulate pumps and piping to handle storm water. On the other side of this section is an underground access. The below-ground chamber contains a large reservoir and pumping system. This system pumps storm water collected at street level and pumps it from the shoreline slightly less than a half mile off the coast. This is one of 4 systems at the oceanfront which have the capacity to pump 37,000 gallons per minute in the event of a storm. In an emergency, incidents involving these structures could present several challenges to you and your shift. Most of these buildings require atmospheric monitoring before entering certain sections. Large electrical power systems are used to run these facilities, and most would be considered a confined space entry during a rescue. I hope this segment was helpful. If you have a unique building in your first due, let us share the information with the entire department here on Frontline. Remember, be prepared, be safe, and look out for one another.
Next, let's head over to Company 16 where firefighter Eric Simons shows us a unique hose deployment method their crews have implemented. Let's check it out.
This is firefighter Eric Simons from Company 16, the zoo, and I'm going to show you what we adopted for our front bumper line. So basically what we have is we've built in these 4 loops into our hose load to create handles for when we want to deploy the hose. You put your arms through the loops to create a basket, and then you'll just lift the entire load out like so. And you're just going to drop it on the ground. You can grab your nozzle and your first coupling and flake it out straight. Now when it comes to packing it, there's a little trick to your first few loops when you put it in the tray, is you go straight down from your coupling here and go diagonally across to create part of the base of the basket. And you create a loop, and you can tuck that away. And you come straight back down and come straight across the back to create your other corner loop. From there, you go diagonally to this corner to create another loop, and then straight across the front, and you come up and create a loop, tuck your loop away, and then it's just packing it the same way you would normally do it, is going accordion fold back and forth. Like I said before, this is how we pack our front bumper line here at the 16 house. If you're ever here on relief or on a trade and you have to go and pull it and you're just not sure on how to pull it or you don't know, it can be pulled the same way that you're used to. Just grab the nozzle and run with it. That's the cool part about this load. You could either pull it out as a basket or just grab the nozzle and go.
Master Firefighter Chris Zach shows us how to break a 400-foot line to a 200-foot line. Here's Chris now.
Today we're going to talk about how to break the 400-foot line into a 200-foot line. Sometimes, depending on our positioning, it may be easier to pull this line than to pull a cross lay or one of our speed lays. So I'm going to take you through those steps, and the crew from Engine 16 C Shift is also going to do the evolution with me. Here we have our plaza load, our 400-foot 1 3/4 pre-connected line. What we're going to do is, if we want to break this to a 200-foot line, we're going to take our coupling that's exposed, break it, and attach it to our other side of our gated Y, making sure we close the side that does not have the nozzle on it and open this side before we charge it from the pump panel. As you can see, this is a nice option as opposed to your cross lay or speed lay, depending on your positioning. Also, if you'd like to make a backup line from this setup, all you would need to do is put a nozzle on your exposed male coupling, and that will give you a 200-foot 1 3/4 pre-connected line.
We now head out to the fire garage and Master Firefighter Jeff Rosenfeld with his latest edition of Rags to Wrenches.
A few weeks ago, Chief Crandall sent out a new memo referencing the maintenance policy and what to do with the old 2-cycle gas that we're taking out of the trucks every 30 days. The gas has to be put in a waste oil tank / gas tank here at the city garage. For many years, we used to take this gas and dump it into the brush trucks or the battalion vehicles. With the stricter emission standards and the new sensors on these trucks, that'll lead to problems and faults. So we don't want to put this old gas into gas vehicles anymore. When you come down to the small engine shop here at the city garage, we'll go in here and talk to Mike to borrow the key for the waste gas tank. When you get inside the small engine shop, find Mike, he'll help us out. Hey Mike, can we have the key for the waste gas tank today?
Yes sir, no problem.
Thanks, appreciate it.
The tanks are out back around the building.
Thanks.
And on the left-hand side.
We'll have it back in a few minutes.
Right.
Thank you. Once we get the key, we come on over to the waste gas tank. Go ahead and unlock it. Open up the door. Then go ahead and dump the waste gas into the tank. As you're pouring the gas in, it's going to stay up in this chamber here because it only drains down once the top is closed. After you've dumped all the gas into the waste gas tank, come ahead and close the door. Go ahead and make sure the plunger's activated. Push it down and then lock it back. Once you're finished with the keys, go ahead and put them back on Mike's desk. Hey Mike, we're all done. Appreciate your help. Okay. See you in a little while. Anytime. Bye now. Also, we'd like to talk about the check engine light in the cab. This causes a lot of confusion among everybody, so we want to get the word out what our policy is going to be when that check engine light comes on. The light we're going to demonstrate up here on the dashboard. The yellow check engine light reminds us it's yellow, caution. It's saying there's something that could be wrong, but maybe not. If your check engine light comes on, check your gauges, make sure they're still in the right parameters. Is the truck still running normally, still shifting normally? Get outside and look around the truck. If there's no problems, the truck can stay in service till the next morning when the garage is open to get that check engine light checked out. The message we want to put out is that light comes on at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Friday night. You do not have to put the truck out of service if it's still running properly. There's a red stop engine light that comes on. If that red stop engine light comes on, the truck is having a catastrophic situation and needs to be shut down immediately. So just remember by the lights, yellow's caution, red stop engine means shut the engine off as soon as possible. Also on the new Pierces, there's another check engine light that we're not used to seeing. It's a little light that looks like an outline of a motor. That goes to other check engine gauges and sensors, and we're going to treat that the same way. If that yellow light comes on and everything is acting normal, we'll go ahead and leave the truck in service till the next available time to get the truck to the shop Monday morning or whenever. If you have any questions or any other ideas for Frontline, please give me a call at Company 21A Shift.
Well, that's it for this month's edition. As always, we enjoy getting feedback from you, so please let us know what you thought. Send your suggestions, comments, or story ideas to us at vbfdtv@vbgov.com or email Kirk Kellerhalls at the address shown on the screen below. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. For the entire Frontline Firefighter staff, I'm your host, Master Firefighter Chris Stockow. And remember the words of a middle-aged, slightly balding, slightly out-of-shape firefighter. Motivation is a requirement for success, not failure. See you next month.